So in his staff report, the city manager wrote that he anticipates for this fiscal year for there to be between a $15 to $20 million shortfall.
Mm.
So it's a fairly hefty amount of money, which means we probably need to figure out how to reprioritize things. And so the point of this discussion today is I wanted to get feedback from the community on, given this kind of shortfall and given some of the other critical needs that we have, like there are some people who got laid off, or some businesses that are shutting down because they have no business anymore, or some people can't pay their utility bills. There's all these other needs that we have. I wanted to have a discussion with folks in the community to see what are some ideas we have in terms of how should we make trade-offs. What are some ideas you guys have in terms of how do we make it through this storm? So I don't know, either Regina or Vanessa, if you guys have ideas or thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
Well, we're not going to be using our park areas as much in the upcoming months. Is that correct?
Well, they're shutting down the parking, right? Or have shut down the parking. So it seems like now you could still walk there, I suppose, but a lot of them you can't really drive to anymore. And a lot of the play structures and stuff are certainly shut down. So that is a fair assessment.
Okay, so yeah, there's some maintenance that can be cut out in the parks, but that's still a very small amount, I'm sure.
Yeah, but right now we're actually paying all of our city employees, even if they're working from home, and even if they can't work from home, you're still paying them. Are you suggesting that we stop paying them to kind of move their money or resources to other areas?
Well, I can't advocate not paying them. Perhaps the resources can be moved to other areas.
Okay, yeah, so have them repurposed to other tasks, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, and along the same lines, what I was thinking was maybe, they could, I know that a lot of neighborhoods have set up kind of volunteering, people volunteering to help pick up groceries for older people or checking on them, but maybe the city workers could form some kind of a task force like that, and they could get paid for it. I don't know, just a thought.
Well, it makes sense, right? So if they can't do their normal job, can they do something else that can still be helpful during these tough times, right? So I think that makes sense. I think the idea behind not having employees come to the city to work is because they're trying to practice social distancing, right? But I think there's some city functions where it's hard to do that remotely, right? Like it's hard to run the library remotely, right?
Right.
Do you guys have other ideas or suggestions?
I don't know, what sorts of resources have been considered thus far in terms of, resources that we can do without, but once we get past this crisis, we are not so behind the curve that we're going to spend a lot of money trying to catch up again.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now the city council had voted to spend, I think, somewhere between $2 to $3 million making our council chambers nicer. I'm thinking that that's probably something we could probably defer. I don't know whether, especially since we're doing our council meetings remotely now, do we really need to spend such money on sprucing up our council chambers? I mean, for me, that's one which makes sense to defer, right?
Absolutely. And we might be, going forward, virtual meetings might be something that we continue with.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
in fact, it may be more, it may be easier for people, especially people who work, right? It may be easier for them to attend council meetings this way versus having to, jump in the car and drive over because, I know that some people, when they get home, they have to care of their kids and whatnot, prepare dinner. It's hard to, with all those responsibilities, jump in the car and go to his council chambers. So yeah, so maybe this whole, I mean, this is one reason why I voted against the idea against the council chamber improvements is because I felt that, we have scarce taxpayer dollars, and this is before the COVID-19 situation. But for me, like during the boom times, you want to build up a reserve of cash, so that during tough times like this, you have a reserve of cash that you could use to buffer some of these extraordinary events. So anyways, that's why I was thinking, like, in terms of things that we could maybe delay, maybe we don't have to, put in the jumbotron in our council chambers right now, right? Maybe we can wait on that.
Sure. If the improvements are purely cosmetic and not for safety, then we can certainly defer those, right?
Yeah, it was to basically improve the experience that you go there, right? So we were going to have like HD, super. So right now, if you go to our council, I'm not sure if you guys have been to our council chambers, but right now we have these big screens, but they're not that high res and that high quality. So this was to make them a lot better, right? And to add nicer curtains and stuff like that. So to make it more ADA accessible. So I mean, so it's stuff like that.
Yeah, the ADA accessibility is important, but the the high def is not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing that we found out is, right now we're now live streaming our video to YouTube, right? And part of this was also to enable that, but we've done it with a $15 a month subscription to Zoom. So maybe we could just keep paying that $15 a month and not have to spend the millions of dollars that we would have otherwise on the council chambers. So anyways,
Right.
you asked for a potential one. That's one. I mean, another one, we spent I think $230,000 or $250,000 on a solar calculator. So this was to, if you go to Google and type solar calculator, a bunch of calculators show up that show you whether it makes sense to put solar panels on your roof or not. So maybe we could just let the private sector take care of that versus building our own custom one, as an example.
Absolutely.
I
mean, that sounds like a fun gadget, but someone else can do it cheaply, much cheaper.
It's nice to have, but at a time when we're trying to make up $15 to $21 a quarter, maybe the nice to have, we could delay that for a bit, and spend our money on things that are more critical.
Yeah.
I mean, last week we approved a $2.3 million parking program, parking enforcement program. But the city right now during this pandemic is not enforcing our parking. So maybe we shouldn't do that, right? So that's another one perhaps we could save some money on.
What, I'm sorry, what is the parking program supposed to do?
This was a parking enforcement program. So it's a $2.3 million contract to a parking enforcement company to enforce parking in our residential neighborhoods, which in general I'm in favor of. But right now, the city is not enforcing our parking. We're not giving parking tickets, just on principle, because we're in a pandemic situation. So if we're not going to give parking tickets, why do we have a parking enforcement program? Why spend $2.3 million on this?
Well, when do we anticipate issuing tickets again?
I would imagine after the pandemic ends, right? So that might be another month or so, or maybe 2 months. I know it's hard to know how long it is, but I guess my question though is if we're not going to enforce parking, why are we going to spend millions on a parking enforcement program?
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. If it's possible to just put them on hold for now, so at least you don't have to make the payments until it's over.
It seems to make sense to me, because we have $15, $20 million to make up a quarter. So how do we? But these are just some ideas I'm coming up with. But I'd love to hear some of your guys' suggestions.
Well, it certainly depends on how much we make on the parking enforcement program.
Oh, we lose money. We don't make money on parking.
Okay. Okay.
No. Yeah, no, we it's not. Some cities it's a revenue source, not our city.
Okay, so it's all quality of life.
All quality of life, yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
A lot of money, yeah. I know. That's why last Monday I voted against it, because I just felt like, I mean, people are losing their jobs. We have 6.6 million people unemployed. We have businesses left and right closing shop for good in our city. We have people getting laid off. We have people who can't pay the mortgage, people who can't pay the rent, people who can't pay their utility bills. maybe we should use some of that money to defer some of the utility bills, right? So that people can survive, right? Anyway, that's just my thought, right? Maybe it's wrong, maybe we don't need to do that. But to me, I just think that there are people hurting, we should try to help them.
Yeah, there's a lot of rebuilding we're going to have to do when this is over. So parking enforcement may be the least of our problems at that point.
Well, I'm just worried about bankruptcy, right? I think there's a lot of bankruptcies are going to be happening, both personal and on the commercial side as well. And I feel for people. I mean, I think probably everyone's known someone that's gotten laid off, or filed unemployment, or can't pay the rent, or pay their utility bills. I mean, so this is the last of. I had 5 office hour sessions before this. I just talked to a few people who are in this situation. So it's pretty dire right now. I mean, I think people are saying this thing rivals the Great Depression, and I think they're right.
Yes.
It's only bigger than the Great Recession. This is something that's not happened on the scale in probably in our lifetimes or in the country's entire history. This is incredible. So
Yeah.
I think every level of government, the federal level, the state level, the county level, the local level, everyone needs to try to help. I think government needs to help be the backstop during situations like this.
And could you state again, what is the anticipated loss for the city in the coming months?
It's he said is about in the report is about $15 to $20 million per quarter. So because I think he's pointing for last quarter, or he's saying for this fiscal year, but it's really the impact really has happened this quarter. So if we have the same impact every quarter, that would be like $80 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, we struggle in good years to cut $4 million, right? Or $2 million out of our budget. So this is like, I mean, this is like 4x that, right? Or more than 4x. It's yeah, I mean, it's unfathomable. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to have the discussion, because tomorrow we're going to have the hard discussion, but I wanted to hear feedback from the community.
Another thing that you guys could do, and this is really just bouncing off, and maybe you can take it off from there. Maybe you could organize something online, like a fundraising of some kinds, to maybe sell some product or service, and then match some of those funds to give to the city. And I don't know what that is going to be right now. That's why I said maybe you could just bounce off it and take it from there.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, like matching donations, right? Although the city itself, because of a revenue shortfall, I don't know how much we can match, but or maybe I don't know, but I like the idea.
I mean the private sector, for example.
Oh, the private sector.
Yeah, and then they could match and then give you guys a portion of it, or some of, or match equally.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of success with programs like that, right? That seems to sometimes encourage the right kind of behavior, right, in terms of fundraising. So yeah, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Just out of curiosity, do you guys live here in the city?
Yeah,
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
What have you guys seen among the people you guys know? What kind of impact has this pandemic had on the people that you guys know?
I've seen a lot of people who are dealing with the childcare issues, having their kids at home, and I might have mentioned to you that I'm an ESV, so I put on my yellow vest and I walk around the neighborhood, and of course I see the teenagers, not on a day like today, but I see the teenagers hanging out and not social distancing, and that's a big legitimate concern. They're going home to their parents and their grandparents. So yeah. I'm not seeing so much in the way of job loss here, because many of us are working from home, but I know my company is going to be laying off at some point. So I'm anticipating, seeing a lot more job losses as we go along. And then of course the the service community is taking a very serious hit. So it's hard to support everyone through this.
Yeah, no, I hear you. There's a website called layoff.fyi, and it's showing all the layoffs, and it's just astronomical. I mean, I'm talking about here in the Bay Area, just astronomical in terms of the amount of companies that are laying people off. I mean, not just service companies. Service companies, absolutely, like restaurants, retail, that's absolutely. But even in the tech sector, right, which is supposedly more buffered from all this, there's just
Right.
massive amount of layoffs going on right now.
Yeah.
So the whole economy is kind of seizing up right now.
Yeah. There's going to be we're going to have to rebuild everything. It's amazing how quickly we can be taken down.
It's almost like a different world, you know. It's almost like something out of a sci-fi movie. You know what I'm saying? It's unfathomable that something like this could happen. Yeah, I mean, it's like there's nothing like this has happened in my lifetime before. So
Yeah. Go ahead.
How about you, Vandana? What have you seen?
Yeah, I think, for my part, I can say I'm in the healthcare field, and I have been actually working pretty much until day before yesterday at work. And I work at a hospital in San Francisco. And in my neighborhood, I have seen people have been mostly sheltering in place. People do go out for walks, but I would say about 95% of the time they are following the social distancing norms. So that's good. And the people I know, thankfully, it counts as essential services, so they are still working. Yeah, I would say it's, people have been generally good. The grocery stores, it took them a little while to come around to the social distancing. I think now they are being very good about it, especially the big stores. The smaller ones are not as careful about it, but and people are not wearing masks in public. I know it's not mandated to do that. I wish that people would actually, because it is safer, but it is what it is, and you can only do remind people what, not much else you can do. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, actually, in general, I've seen people be pretty good about this. It seems like overall people are trying to really practice social distancing. I also agree, though. I haven't seen a lot of people wear masks, although I'm starting to see a lot more now that it's been more official. And I'm hoping that really does help stop the spread, because sooner we could kind of get through this, the better. But yeah, no, thank you. I mean, as someone in the healthcare area, thank you for your service, because I know that a lot of our doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals are putting their lives on the line to help people. So I really incredibly grateful for everyone's what everyone is doing in that regard.
Yes, I am as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. Any other suggestions? Because like right now we have, if you think about it at a high level, we have our employees, we have our residents, we have our businesses, right? And we have this kind of shrinking pie, right? Shrinking about $15-20 million. And we have needs from all three of these different areas. Do you guys have a feel about how do we reallocate the pie among these three different areas?
Well, I do think that this school lunch program, which I believe is being extended to beyond just the one child, sometimes two entire families, I think that's really important.
Yeah. Well,
that's a safety net.
Yeah, that's a school district thing. But I am grateful that they're doing this. But yes, it's not their city though. But
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think immediately after this is contained, the most important need would be to give back, to the residents, especially the high-risk groups who have been suffering. And then after that, it should be the city, because you need the city to be providing the infrastructure and the services to the people. So I think if it was me, I would go in that order.
Okay. Regina,
I wonder how this is going to impact the housing crisis that we were having and are still having as this goes on.
It's a good question. I don't know. I know that uh, I heard from some realtors, and pretty much they told me that everything is like frozen, right? People are pulling back their listings or not selling. People aren't showing houses. People aren't really buying. So I don't know. I don't think there's. I would imagine prices have gone down a lot. I mean, they were already going down before this, so they probably have plummeted, I would guess. I've heard, and I haven't done a lot of research on it, so this may not be right. I heard that rental prices have collapsed. That like maybe it's just the Airbnb market. Maybe not long-term rentals. Maybe that's okay. I'm not sure, but I do think that at least Airbnb, well, certainly hotels and Airbnb have totally collapsed, but I'm not sure if that translates to the same thing as the longer term rental market. And the housing market, I think because there's no transactions, there's no new reference point. So it's hard to know prices are really falling. I can't imagine them not, right? But I don't know.
Are we reaching out to the homeless in this city? I know there are programs in San Francisco and San Jose, but I'm not familiar with what's happening here.
I know that we have programs in place and that we're trying to help. I haven't actually gotten an update on that. That's something I should probably ask about. So I'm not sure. I think I have heard that, to make sure that people are practicing social distancing, more facilities have been open to try to kind of keep people apart from each other. But I haven't gotten too much data on that. I don't know if you heard anything different than that, but that's what I've heard so far.
Yeah, I've not heard a thing about that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think our homeless population is not as big as some other cities. So I'm not sure. I know for some other cities, it's a real big struggle. For us, I haven't heard too much about it. So I actually don't really know firsthand.
Okay.
So any kind of final thoughts on how we could kind of navigate this as we try to figure out how to make things happen?
Well, I mean, you talked about some cosmetic projects that, we can definitely defer, and we have to focus on safety first. I mean, that's a guiding principle for any time, and especially now.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want people dying. that's
Yeah,
not
and my thoughts would be to tap into the private sector really, because they live here in the city. You have CEOs of big companies, living in the city. I would tap them, tap their resources.
Yes, I agree.
You're saying like to see if they're willing to donate?
Donate, or whichever way they can do, either donate or set up some system, sell some service or donate some services, or just donate to the city if nothing else. Yeah.
Yeah, a partnership.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something worth exploring because we do have some very, very wealthy people here who may be willing to do that. Yeah, because there's definitely a lot of needs here, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well,
we're extremely fortunate, but there are still needs. Yes.
Well, I think we're extremely fortunate, but I think, unfortunately, the health impact is pretty clear, right? But the economic impact, even though we're a relatively wealthy city, is still being felt here. And I think every city in the world is going to be feeling it. I don't think any city is going to be immune. I think this is too widespread of an impact not to be felt everywhere.
Yes.
And so I think we just need to do the necessary steps as a city to try to help where we can, so that hopefully we come through out of this faster and easier than we would otherwise.
I think looking at what it's going to be like on the other side is so vital right now. We really need to put things in place such that we can maximize the impact of getting ourselves back on our feet again. And, I don't know what city processes those would be, but you know, we need to start envisioning what it's going to be like when we get to the other side.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's one of the things I know also sometimes when you shut down, like some restaurants, when they shut down and they reopen, they have to get, you know, new permits to reopen and stuff like that. So I think we want to make sure that process is streamlined so that,
Yes.
you know, so there's not a whole bunch of red tapes. Sometimes it takes a year to open a restaurant. No, we want to kind of make that a little bit faster. You know, some cities have done like small business loans to try to tide people through. You know, one thing I've been exploring is, can we defer some of the utilities for people? Because sometimes right now, especially for people who lost their jobs or as a business that's, you know, having no revenue right now, it could be really, really meaningful to have some economic relief.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Okay. Well, we're a little bit past 4, so I wanted to thank both of you guys for joining in on this. And if you guys have any ideas or suggestions, let me know. You know, we're going to kind of bring this topic up tomorrow at the council meeting. So looking for great ideas, and I know that there's no easy ones, unfortunately.
Thank you, Greg. And thank you so much for your service. I know this is really rough, a rough time.
Well, I'm trying my best. So thank you guys for calling and giving me some advice here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you,
Sure.
Greg.
Okay.
Thank you, Regina.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
Have a good
bye-bye.
day. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.